Hi, parents. This is for any parent of a child aged between 8 and 20 who has autism. This is a whole bunch of questions that parents have asked me in the last couple of weeks, or our most popular questions, so that you can know, have a bit of a roadmap as a parent of how to raise and how to support your young person with autism. So the first question that we want to have a look at is the parents asking is, how do we have less meltdowns? Now, a meltdown is not a tantrum. A meltdown is when your young person gets emotionally overwhelmed and it will just feels too much and they can't handle it. And meltdowns can go outwards at the world, or they can go inwards at you. Sorry, at inwards at themselves. So a meltdown that goes inwards at themselves might look at, something's gone wrong, or, something didn't go to plan, or they might have said something they feel embarrassed about. And your child then goes to themselves, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. Or everyone hates me. Everyone hates me. It's like that's a meltdown going inwardly, whereas a meltdown going outwards is where your child's teacher says, I don't know what happened. He was just completely fine. And then he went from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds and he just exploded it, and yelling and whatever. It's like, actually, first up, Mr. or Mrs. Teacher, he wasn't at 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. He was already at 90 and had probably had been for an hour or so before. Um, but secondly, like that's an example of a meltdown going outwards. So how do we have less meltdowns? The first thing is to understand that meltdowns are triggered by overwhelm or by a sense of I can't handle this, I can't cope. So let's look at what are those triggers and let's reduce that. Like let's try and see what we can do. It might be someone teased them, might have been the loud environment, it might have been just too many things adding up, or too much pressure on your young person. Little things that could have helped. It's like going for a walk, or just taking some time out, or listening to some music through headphones instead of what was happening. But long story short, how do we have less meltdowns? So first thing is understand, well, why do they happen? Like, what was the trigger? Like, what can we make easier next time? But then the second thing is, once your child is escalating, that's not the time to try and have a conversation with them about why they shouldn't be escalating. Okay. Now, teachers don't tend to understand that because that's not how it works for most kids. But for your child, the teacher needs to understand, if something's gone amiss, then today's not the day to address that. Tomorrow, let's address that. And it's the same with your child. Once they start escalating, don't reason with them, or explain them why we shouldn't be doing whatever we're doing. Instead, just give them the space to calm down. That might take 20 minutes. It might take 2 hours. Who knows? For what your child needs. But yeah, if you want to have less meltdowns or less intense meltdowns, it's pretty important to not. That's not a teachable moment. That's time where your child just needs time and space to calm down. Something else on meltdowns, I guess, is a question that flows from that is, how do I get the grandparents or the relatives, or your partner to stop viewing this as you being a soft, useless parent, and start viewing this as you being the best parent you can be, which is to support your child in the way they need, not in the way, say, a neurotypical child needs it. um, I think, long story short, is that this here is one of a whole bunch of resources that we've got for parents. Um, Take this and give it to your relatives. Even better, actually, look down the bottom of the description on this, and there's a link to download an ebook, a short ebook. It's a PDF file, goes straight to your email, and you can just give it away to your relatives. You can give it away to your child's teacher, and you can help them to have the answers they need without you having to have the argument with them. Okay. Um, Another question is like, um, how do we stop? Different question that comes in a lot. How do we stop every conversation being a one-sided conversation about a topic that my child loves? Like, how do we teach my child to have conversations to go backwards and forwards? So the first thing to understand here is that your child may not understand the purpose of the conversation. Now, you and I as adults, we're a bit older. Like, we understand, like, the purpose of a conversation is to build relationship by exchanging information between two people. Okay, so I've given you some information about me, you've given me some information about you, and that's the exchange that is a conversation. Um, your child may not understand that's the purpose of a conversation. It needs to be broken down into a formula for your child. Okay, and so the idea of a conversation is that you know you want the formula for your child to be that you're going to give that person a couple of bits of information about you, and then you're going to ask that person some questions about things they want to talk about, And then you're going to ask them some follow-up questions on the things that they want to talk about. And then you can have a turn again of talking about what you want to talk about. It's a formula, it's a social formula, and it's what works. But if your child doesn't understand that social formula, they're just going to think, oh, the purpose of this conversation is to answer this question, or to give this person some information about something that they'll be excited about too, which might be Minecraft, might be Pokemon, it might be your pets. But it's like when parents are saying, how do I teach my child that social skill? It's not a quick social skill to teach. There's a bunch of formulas for conversation skills, and and but it starts with your child understanding the purpose. Here's another question I get asked a lot. It's, why is my child so anxious so often? It's like, well, there's a lot to be anxious about, because I haven't met many young people with autism who are not quite anxious, because the world doesn't always feel in control. Now, you and I as adults, the world doesn't always feel in control for us. Imagine you or I going into a workplace that's a little bit of a hostile workplace. It's not a fun workplace to be in, and we're always watching our backs because we could be backstabbed at any time. Okay, imagine living in a workplace like that. We would be a bit on edge. We'd be a bit anxious ourselves. Well, in the same way for your child, the world feels like that. The social rules that you and I understand because we look around our workplace, or our social groups, the social rules are pretty stable. We understand them. We know to not break the social rules, otherwise we're going to have a hard time. In the same way, your child doesn't understand those social rules, so that to your child, what seems stable and safe, because I can talk to my friend in this way. If I try and do that with the teacher, I get shot down. Or yesterday, I could talk to my friend about, I don't know, Minecraft, Pokemon, whatever it was, and they listened. Today, I go to talk to them about that, and they just don't want to listen. And your child doesn't understand why. And your child doesn't understand what the next steps are. So the world doesn't feel safe. Therefore, they feel anxious. It doesn't feel stable. Now, the way around this is you want your young person to understand the social rules, the social norms of how conversations work, how friendships work. Things like a lot of our kids have an expectation that they'll meet someone and then become their best friend in a week. Now, that's just not how the world works. You meet someone, they're an acquaintance over a period of time, they might become a friend. 6 months later, look, they might become a best friend. But that's a long process with lots of steps. And it's things like that that your child doesn't understand that leave them feeling like anxious and worried. So there's two things around that. One is you want to set up the environment your child lives and operates in, like school or wherever they are, so that so it does feel safe. You want to get the supports in place. That's helpful. But the second thing is, and this is the longer lasting thing, is you want your child to be able to understand the social rules, what works in the real world. And for that, that's social skills, that's friendship skills, that's interpersonal skills. And basically, for that, every social interaction you have can be broken down into a formula that makes sense. And we, in the courses that we run, one of them is called the Peers Social Skills course. It's evidence based, it's a world class course, 14 different social skills across 14 weeks. You can imagine the difference and the relief that young people feel after they've done that sort of course. Um, and so yeah, part one is try, like, do what you can to make the environment feel safer, the world feel safer. But part two is social skills are the long term solution, like developing your child's ability to interact with others. And if you look in the link down the bottom of this video, I highly recommend you click on it. Tell us where to email you the information that's answers to most frequent questions, and some of that is going to be about social skills, which is a big help to your young person, and it's about how to help your child develop social skills. Another question that we get asked, new question, is why is dealing with school so hard? Why does school have to be so tricky? Your child might have a fantastic year at school with a teacher, and then the next year it's a terrible year. So you might have like one good year for every two bad years, and it feels unfair. So, firstly, your child's teachers don't understand autism as much as you think they do, or as much as they think they do. Because if I'm honest, I was a school teacher for, I don't know, 15 years before I really started to understand um, what young people with autism need and how to help them have an environment where they can succeed. So that makes it your role to help your child's teacher understand what the world looks like through your child's eyes. Because once they can understand, oh, as I walk in the classroom, I feel like the world's chaotic. As I walk in the classroom, I feel lost. As I walk in the classroom, it's loud. There's people bumping against me. I feel physically like the world, like the world's pressing in on me, and it sets me off. Okay, so that sort of mindset, right? Once your child understands that about your child, your teacher can. Once your child's teacher understands that about your child, the teacher can be a lot more compassionate, a lot less, irritated by your child's, quirky moments, but they can also set things up for your child to succeed. So school is easier when your teachers understand what your child needs, and you know what, download the PDF and give your child's teacher the PDF. Easy. Or we've got others that could be helpful as well. What else makes school hard to understand is that school's just the real world for your child. So, in the same way that when your child is 35, the real world will be their workplace. Right now, the real world is your child's school. We can't expect others to be as compassionate and accommodating as we wish they were, especially if they're your child's age. What we can do though is we can make sure the teacher understands what your child needs. Another thing is, how do I help my child to not be lonely at lunchtime at school? It's like, well, that's actually a long-term question with a long-term solution. And the long-term solution for that is social skills, helping your child develop social skills, also emotional regulation skills, because you can't keep friends if you get really upset with your friends and shut them out of your world or say something really harsh because you are having a hard day. So it's a combination of social skills and emotional regulation skills. Here's another question that a lot of parents are sort of asking themselves. It's like, hold on, how is my child going to find and keep a partner? Okay, how's my child going to do in romantic relationship in the future? It's like, there's a couple of questions behind that question. The first one is, let's deal with today's issues today. So whether your child's 7, 14, 20, it's like step one is build social skills, interpersonal skills, because um, a lot of the skills your child needs for a romantic relationship actually come from your day-to-day social skills. Okay, so step one, build social skills. But step two is that let's deal with today's issues today and let's deal with tomorrow's issues tomorrow. Okay, so if your child's 14, there's no purpose in worrying about how is my child going to meet a partner. It's like, hold on, you'll be astounded by how far your child comes once they develop some social skills, actually, and emotional regulation skills, because you're going to need that in a with a partner. You'll be surprised how far your child comes in the next couple of years. So let's not be worrying about things in the future. Let's be looking at, well, what can we do today? Okay. Another question, or it's more a statement, parents will ask is, why does no one understand how hard this is? Okay. Raising young people is hard. Raising young people who have additional needs is hard. Raising young people who have additional needs, and when that additional need is that they have autism, that's going to create some hurdles. And so there's huge joys for us as parents, but there's also huge hurdles. And it's almost like there's this sense of isolation that can happen. Okay, so when someone's saying, "Why is this so hard?" or "Why does this feel so unfair?" or "Why am I the only one on my street who needs to go and have a shower so they can have a good cry?" It's like, well, and not be overheard. I mean, the underlying thing there is not the question of why is this so hard. It's why are we so isolated? Because if we can't talk to someone about what we're facing, then we are isolated and we are stuck, and that's not a good place to be. So that isolation, it's like, hold on, if your son went, just hit someone over something that was trivial, or if your son or daughter is like screaming, for like an hour in the evening, a couple of days a week, often we feel like we can't tell someone about that because they might judge us, or they might be like, oh, I'm not going over their place. I don't want my kids to be over there. It's like, what that does is it leaves us isolated, but you're going to need people. And if you don't have people you can chat with, get in touch with us, because we've got completely free of charge, parent encouragement nights where we sit down with our parents on Zoom, so from home, and we just chat about what's working, and we actually encourage each other, and it's a healthy place to be. But that's an example of not being isolated. There's other ways that you can not be isolated. You can go and have a coffee with someone else who has a son or daughter. with autism. But long story short, that question of like, oh, why do people not understand how hard this is? The question is, it's not so much the question. The real question behind it is, how do I get unisolated? Because isolation will cripple your motivation. It'll cripple your sense of hope, and isolation it'll just make life feel harder than it needs to be. Okay, so um, if if you look down right down the bottom of this, the YouTube description of this, you can download all these questions and answers, and I've got a whole heap more questions and answers, because this is part one of a multi-part segment of questions that parents are asking us, where they want to know, how do we make life work well for our young person with autism, and how do we make life work well in our home. And so please go down, click on the link, um, and get hold of like the full thing of this, and read it at your leisure. And best of all, give it away to other people who need it. It will save you a lot of conversations. It'll save you some of those conversations from being awkward. It'll equip others to help your child. And lastly, well done. As a parent, if you're the sort of parent who's watching this, who's listening to this, um, good on you for being someone who goes and proactively seeks support and seeks better ways of doing things, because that's a big step. And let's be honest, you could have just sat there watching TV and you didn't. Okay, you're here learning stuff that will support your child. So well done. Keep being an amazing parent. And if there's any way we can support you, go and check out all the free resources. There's like literally dozens and dozens of free resources. Amazing skills. .com.au. So if you're in Australia, amazingskills.com.au. If you're in the rest of the world, amazingskills.org.